And we are so pleased now to be joined by Cantor Daniel Benlolo, Marvin Rosenblatt, who is the film's executive producer, and Evan Beloff, who is the director. Welcome to you all, gentlemen. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Daniel, for those folks who may not know, what is a cantor and what is your role?
A cantor is another way of saying a chant, someone who chants, someone who sings, and we embellish, if you want, the services at the synagogue. We are in charge of all the musical component, making sure that we have choirs to be able to enhance the service and get everybody to participate and to elevate the prayers into a certain height.
We'll get to hear you in the film that we're going to be seeing next week, but could you give us a little taste of what you do?
There's a beautiful piece of music called the Enkelohenu, which is "There is none other like you, O Lord," that we sing during services, and it goes like this. Enkelohenu, Enekadonenu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshienu, no hay como nuestro Dios, no hay como nuestro Señor, no hay como nuestro Rey, no hay como nuestro Salvador. This is just a very quick sample. And this music has been brought down from generations to generation, never written in music until recently.
And that's beautiful. Marvin, tell us why you decided to make this film.
When we first discussed this, it was going to be looked at in more negative terms. And I said, you know what? I would like to maybe get involved with this as a legacy project to my late parents, who were both Holocaust survivors. And I believe that cantorial music, especially in my mother's life, was both in internment and concentration camps, and who maintained a religious observance throughout her lifetime. Cantorial music and being in the synagogue had great meaning to her, both emotionally and on a personal level. And for my father, it also brought him back to his youth and all those family members and extended family that he lost and perished during the war. But I tried to look at this in a more positive context, rather than look only at this in a diminishing value. Let's look at this as more of an evolutionary process, where these cantors will remain faithful to the origin of the classical cantorial music, always faithful in their observance, but at the same time evolve to the congregants of today and what they'd like to hear in the various congregations in the city. Also, I think the central value of this film is that we incorporate so many different aspects from the different from the different parts of Judaism, from the modern Orthodox, the conservative, the Reform, and you show that this narrative is something that happens in many synagogues, where you have a diminishing attendance in even outside of Judaism and organized religion today. And I thought it was important to show this and how you could listen to these different people, their opinions, to show that you'll always remain faithful to the origin, but do what you can to bring these people in, to encourage them, have them involved in some way, and bring them what they want to hear to increase this attendance and to bring up their interest in participating in the synagogue life.
Decades ago, a century ago, the synagogues would be filled to the rafters with people who would come to hear the cantors. And that has changed over the years. What has happened that's changed? Why has the popularity of it declined and the numbers dwindled?
The main issue, the main problem that we're facing today, and for the decline, is that today there are so many distractions. Kids have karate, they have play dates, they have birthdays, they have ski days, they have whatever you want to call it, that occupies the whole family. Then when the kids are not busy, the parents are, why am I going to take the kids and then drive them to the synagogue, and they're going to sit for 3 hours or 4 hours. It's too long, it's too tedious. I think the most important reason for the decline is that people lost interest. What we can do now to alleviate some of this issue and to hopefully re-energize is small steps. So today we take songs like from Simon and Garfunkel and we put them into the prayers. We take Leonard Cohen stuff and we put it in the prayers. We put all, thank goodness we don't have copyright for these things. I mean, if we don't have to have copyright when we're in the synagogue, we're not selling anything, but it's a very interesting concept. When people listen to something new or something that they know, they jump in right away.
And this is the struggle that took place in the film. Sid, who's a purist, Sid Dworkin, is this purist and classically trained cantor who would like to see the music stand on its own based on the merits of the music itself. Even though there's a kind of an element of exclusivity to it, kind of, other cantors are struggling with or are embracing this idea of outreach so that they can bring in people that might not normally be part of organized religion, whether it's Judaism, Catholicism, Islam, Protestantism. So I think that the cantors in the film, there's a dialogue between them about how outreach should take place and how they can be dynamic ambassadors for, in this case, Judaism. And I think that I tried to explore that, ask that question and explore that in the film.
So your role has changed somewhat. The role of a cantor has changed.
You can just look around and you can count them on one hand.
Cantors in some way are devalued today because of the budget constraints within the synagogue. You have these operating expenses and administration expenses, but a synagogue is based on donations and membership. So to get the funding to support cantors as well is becoming more in the discussion. And there are synagogues, even in my own, where only during the high holidays do we engage on a contractual basis a cantor to come in. But during the regular services on the Shabbat Saturdays or holidays, we have in-house cantors, people from within our congregation who fulfill those roles.
So cantors are a dying breed.
I hopefully not. Yeah. That's why I really got involved in this.
Hopefully this documentary is going to
revive it.
To re-educate people, to show them the value, the inherent value and beauty.
And the beauty, and the cantors that are in the film are the full-time professional cantors that are in the city. The ones that are in this film are pretty much the Fab Four, and Sid being a cantor emeritus. So he'll do sometimes high holidays. He'll come in and lead service. But the four that are in the film are really the ones that are carrying the torch in Montreal right now.
Some of the finest moments of the film are in the participatory nature of this film. When you see the cantors and the involvement and the participation and the enjoyment and the uplifting spirit of all these people who are watching and participating, that is what I really like to see, because that gives me hope for the future, for the next generation. That even though we live in this society where everything is so fast-paced and people don't like to spend a long time in services that may be somewhat outdrawn, whatever way we can reach them, I think will be beneficial in the long run.
And Daniel, have you had to change your style? Have you had to become more contemporary to try to reach a new generation?
Tremendously. You can't just come in and sing Simon and Garfunkel the whole week and forget about the tradition. You can't do that. What I'm saying is that you need to adapt and you need to be eclectic and you need to change in everything. If you don't change and if you're not eclectic in anything you do, after a while it becomes very monotonous.
So there's the argument for the purity of the form itself of cantorial music, maintaining it as a performance, as something that's extremely traditional. And then there is also the element, which is the outreach element, which is the adaptability of it, which is to reach congregations. And they are separate things. They do collide, but they are separate things. And there are people such as Sid, who's of a different generation, 70 years old, who is pushing for that maintenance of the purity of it, who has his own online audio archive, struggling to keep that aspect of it alive.
So you can hear the cantors of old, of
right,
generations
absolutely.
ago.
And he's been trained by those particular cantors. But then you'll have someone like Adam Stotland in the film who has a rock and roll bluegrass background. And his argument would be, even to discuss the purity of the form itself, that, well, different generations have different loves of different music, right? you talk to millennials today about the Beatles, and they know many will about the Beatles. It's quite shocking that. So this idea of the Cantors of old were the rock stars of their time, and how does one maintain the integrity of that music, or how do you just the preservation of that music? So it's kind of, there's the outreach component to it, there's the element of it that's the archival element of it, and they, of course, those worlds do collide. So we tried to sort of explore a little bit of all of that in the film.